Hey, everybody, welcome back to the podcast. I'm here with Lauren again, and we're still talking about selling your business.
It is a long process with many, many steps that I don't think many people realize how many steps there are involved in it.
Yeah, when we started this and thought of this as a topic, I remember writing it out and, kind of doing like a few bullet points and thinking, oh, well, this whole thing is probably 45 minutes. And now we have like four different
Yeah.
part one, part two, point three, point four, and all of them are around that long. And because it's pretty complex and can be intimidating. And, when I was writing this outline and kind of unpacking it myself, it took me down memory lane, all kinds of emotions, big decisions, things that with our family we were talking about. I mean, like everything's changing. Also, how intimidating it was, and all of those things. It was, and so it made me realize that this is an important topic, but also that like you have to have the right people. Like you really have to have the right people. And at the time, I kind of stumbled through it because I didn't even have anyone to ask questions to. And it was challenging. And so we actually made this entire part about, kind of building your team.
Yeah. So let's dig into that, because that's something I was a little surprised to hear you say, or not surprised, but just not thinking about, selling your business isn't just a job for one. There are many people that should be involved or help you out to make sure that you are doing it correctly. So let's start with just who would you recommend that people look to put on their team when it comes time to sell their business?
Yeah. Going back, we've used the selling your house analogy, right? How it's similar, and then how it's like nothing like.
Yes.
And you would like oftentimes where it's like, oh, well, I'm going to have a real estate agent help me sell my house, and then all of a sudden you have a loan officer, right? And then you've got like, handyman, and all of these different things that kind of come together just to sell a house. So imagine selling a business. And imagine trying to do that on your own. And so I want to spend some time here first with the one that people are not going to expect me to say.
Yeah.
And it's finding a confidant, a mentor, someone who can speak into your life and who's done this process before. Even a consultant if you have to. But I've never, I didn't do this. And I had an investment banker that was good and could walk me through a lot of stuff. But I didn't have anyone to kind of check the investment banker against, like I had nobody. And I'm going to tell you, it was lonely. Even when I went home at night, like to talk about it with my spouse, who's extremely supportive, all she could do is encourage me because like, nobody knows like what to do. And also nobody kind of knows the emotional side of it on top of it. And so since this has happened, I've actually walked with people down this path before. And I can tell you that as I've worked with them and dealt with them, you see the emotional energy being poured out, and like just to be an encouragement and say, hey, listen, it's okay to like change your mind, right? It's okay if you had bigger expectations of the value, but listen, I'm going to tell you, I don't think that value is wrong that they gave you, right? Like, and like just it's very unsettling. In some cases, there's so many zeros attached to these type of transactions that like, you don't know, like, is it enough zeros? Is it too, like, there's just and questions you feel guilty for even asking or knowing who to ask. And so it just becomes very isolated, stressful, no sleep at night. Again, you're still trying to run your day job.
Yeah.
Like you're still trying to run the company and you're trying to get it ready to sell at the same time. And so having a mentor or someone that's walked down those paths before is crucial.
How would you suggest someone find one?
Yeah, great question. So if right now someone's not popping into your head, there never hurts to ask, right? Entrepreneurs sometimes are so prideful and, they don't want to ask, right? They feel like they need to have all they already feel like they need to know the answers, right? And so I would highly suggest you reach out to friends and family and just say, hey, do you even know anybody? And can you just set up a coffee or anything like that? Also, places are at conferences. conferences, many people are in your shoes. Some people are further down the path than you. Some people are newer on down the path for you, but everyone's kind of generally on the same path if you go to conferences. And so I would highly encourage you to go to conferences and meet people like that. And if that's not, kind of your cup of tea and that's not working, like Young Entrepreneurs Association or, all of these different mentoring peer groups, these people are exactly the same. Like they're having the same struggles as you do. And even if they don't know, they know someone who does.
Yeah.
And so again, it takes humility to even admit that and be vulnerable enough to say, like, I need help. And, maybe I don't know you that well, but can I be transparent with you and tell you where I'm at in my process? And, even if it's just, meeting with that person occasionally or just saying, can I bounce an idea off you? It still is someone in your corner that's been there, done that. And I'm not talking about your attorneys. I'm not talking about your accountants. I'm not talking about a CFO. I'm not talking about an investment banker. I'm talking to someone that's totally removed from the deal, that's just been there, had those type of emotional decisions. Like you're going to have to be like, hey, this one firm is offering me so much money, but they're just going to roll us up into another company and they're going to wipe out all our employees. But they've offered me the most. Like, who do you have that conversation with?
So, like, weighing the legacy factors versus, because again, it comes down to what we've been learning about through this whole process. It's not always just about how many zeros are at the end of it. There's a lot of different factors involved in that.
Yeah, and someone has to unpack that with you because otherwise you don't even know how to feel.
Yeah.
And like I've used the word feelings and emotions a lot. And I think most people that tune in think I'm going to be talking dollars and cents. And we'll get there, right? There is a dollars and cents side, but you cannot discount this because it's your baby. And I remember feeling like I was putting my baby up for adoption. Like you feel like guilt, all these strange, crazy emotions.
Yeah. Walk us through what it was like just for you and your wife during this the time of your sales.
Yeah. So first off, my wife has always been so supportive of me. She's not money motivated. She's just family oriented, experience motivated. She wants to have great experiences with our family. And so a funny story here is I told her how much we were selling it for. And she's like, oh, that's nice, honey. And I'm like, did she not hear me? Right. But like, it didn't mean anything to her. Right? And so then, oh my gosh. So then this is so funny. So, again, I told you it's like a 2-year process. So I told her, when we were actually under LOI, right? So it wasn't at the beginning of the 2-year process, but this LOI probably took us about 9 months. It was like having a baby.
Yeah.
So I told her at the beginning, I'm like, oh, we just signed an LOI for this amount. She's like, again, oh, that's nice, honey. So, anyways, we're literally now at the very end on the 11th hour, in the 59th minute, 30th second, it's the night before. And I'm cleaning up and I'm signing some documents and the investment banker's over. And so she has to sign documents too. In our state, everybody has to sign, right? So we're both signing it. And then it comes time to the dollars, right? And then she signs it and she looks at the dollar amount and then she's like, is this right? And I'm like, yeah. And she's like, do they know that how much you're paying for the company? Are you sure it's worth that much? And I'm like, zip it. Shut it. I'm going like, like, just sign and be quiet.
Yeah.
But like, anyway, so she was so supportive of me the entire way, but it wasn't like she was walking me through the deal, but it was so great having her in my corner. And also not having that pressure of the financial side because, our entire life when she was supporting me where we were signing, checks that had many, 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 many zeros in it. That was never what motivated her. What motivated her was seeing me fulfilled and encouraging me. And so having her in my corner was incredible. Right. My kids were at a point in their life where they were super young. They don't remember any of this, but having her there, knowing that like whatever that number was, she was going to be happy meant so much to me. And again, as you think about who do you need in your corner, I'm glad that you asked this question because people don't talk about spouse, they immediately go to the attorney, right? But
Mm-hmm.
these are real conversations you have to have with your spouse. And in my opinion, it can't be like, oh, what are we going to do with the money?
Yeah.
How many, are we going to buy a place on the moon, or we're going to buy a private jet? What, like those are, if that's immediately where your conversation goes, you're going to put this crazy pressure on yourself to hit a number that may or may not be realistic. It may or may not be right for the buyer. You don't need that pressure, right? Like in my mind, it should be like, we're going to do the best that we can and get the value out of the company that's right for the company and do the right thing for the company and the right thing for us. But like trying to put these weird expectations on what that number needs to look like can really carry a heavy burden.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
So you've got, obviously your mentor, you've got your spouse or your supportive, whether it be your family, your children, everything like that. What about then let's go to the actual team that you put in place to help you do this sale?
Yep. So, let's talk about mine in particular. So let's assume that you're selling to like private equity, and you're not, or you're a business. Let's just assume private equity for that sake, and versus a sale to an individual. Because I think a sale to an individual. Well, actually, let's start there. Let's start with the sale to an individual. And something like that, I think it's more along the lines of working through the process with the buyer at the same kind of time, because in that scenario, you have more of a, like, this person's going to be taking over for me, and I think that person really needs to kind of be involved along the way so that the deal is structured that works for both of you. Whereas in the other transactions, more of like, here's what we are, what are you willing to pay for it, And so if you're selling to, a partner or a key employee or an ESOP, like you really want to have full disclosure along the way. And I'm not saying you're going to hide anything in the other scenario, but like you want them to be part of the process. You want them to believe in it. They want to believe in you. You want to believe in them, all of those different things. So I think in that case, you get like a decent attorney. You kind of bullet point out your main business points.
Yeah.
And you could probably even share the attorney, right? You could probably even share the attorney fees. The CPA, you could probably have the CPA. Like you probably, because again, it's probably going to be the same attorney working with the company when you sell it. It's going to be the same CPA. So I think in that scenario, you get a good attorney, you get a good CPA that you both trust, and you probably work through it together. It's like you said, your brother-in-law or your head of sales is buying the company.
Yeah.
In my opinion, it's best to kind of have everybody kind of on the same page.
Okay.
You figure out the bullet points of the process, the business points that are like, hey, these are what we want to do. And then, like I said, that team works within those, that process. When you go and you're selling to like private equity, I feel like you have to have an investment banker.
Okay.
You will get many, 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 and pay attention here. You will get many direct reach outs when you get to this size, a decent sized company where an investment banker could get involved. You'll get many direct reach outs that are like, hey, what if we just kind of do a deal directly? You don't have to pay the investment banker. We'll keep it simple, stupid. I'm not saying they're going to screw you, but if you're trying to get top value, like a good process will drive more value.
Okay.
Because an investment banker will bring in more buyers to the table. If someone's directly reaching out to you, there's a reason they are, right?
Okay.
Like they know you're sexy, right?
Yeah.
They want to ask you to prom before anybody else does.
Yes. Yeah. Okay.
So they call that like direct sourcing. So private equity will have people that kind of try to direct source and do it, without any competition.
And they're doing it to not get into a bidding war, to be able to get you in, offer you the value they want or the price they want to offer you without you. And again, not necessarily saying they're trying to screw you, but without you realizing there could be more out there.
Exactly.
Okay.
And so what I recommend is we've talked about how long this process is.
Yeah.
The sales process itself, from kind of the minute that you think that you could set that you want to sell to the time that you sell, for me took 2 years, and I think that's not atypical. Now, and that's a private company, right? Like I didn't have anything in place. I just had a bookkeeper, and so we had to get all this stuff in order, and it took 2 years. However, what I would say is well, even before those 2 years, even before you're considering selling, like you're going to have investment bankers start to reach out to you.
Mm-hmm.
I would take those calls, not all of them, because you got to do your day job, but like take one every other month, right?
Okay.
Just so you understand where the market is, right? Like you can ask them stuff about competitors. They know stuff you don't know,
Mm-hmm.
right? Like, and they're professional people, so they're not going to share trade secrets. They're not going to share your trade secrets, and they'll sign NDAs or whatever you want them to do. But like they'll tell you like, oh, well, this company just sold for that, this multiple, right? Or, hey, I've noticed that, there's a new player in town, or they're just going to tell you like a good real estate agent would.
Do you pay for that? Or so if you find an investment banker, someone who says, I'm going to sit down and do this with you for a small fee, that is not someone you want to work with.
Yeah, no.
Okay.
No,
So
no.
these should all be offered free of charge.
Yeah, they're basically, if you think about like if you live in a $10 million neighborhood,
Mm-hmm.
like, and you meet a real estate agent and they're like, they don't think you're going to sell tomorrow, but they do think in the next 10 years, you're probably going to sell your house.
Yeah.
They're going to try to develop a relationship with you, and they're going to stop by every couple, months or whatever, or once a year, and have coffee with you and say, hey, here's what these houses have sold for, And by the way, I have a buyer that would love, if you're ever interested, they're just kind of waiting for the right place, and that's what they're doing.
Okay.
They're educating you on the market. And that's what a good investment banker would do. They'll educate you on the market. And over time, you're going to find out which ones you like, and which ones are arrogant jerks so you don't want to deal with, and which ones like you like, man, this person really, they vibe with me. Like I really feel like I could work with them, because you're going to work very closely with them once you select. So during, years leading up to that, I would talk to a handful of them, right? And find out what their pitch is, why they're different than somebody else, and they're all going to have similar pitches, but you'll, over the course of a couple of years, you'll see through the BS and you'll see who you like to work with.
Yeah.
Once you get to the point that you want to sell, what I recommend doing is pick your top 2 or 3. If you're a big company, have them fly in, have them present something to you. Many of them will bring a team,
Okay.
And I mean, it is 2024, 25. You can, do sub Zoom, but like take an afternoon and have them fly and give everyone an hour and a half, 2 hours to give you their best pitch. And these are great. These are very smart professional people. And even the 2 that you don't pick, you're going to learn something from,
Okay.
And so like, then you pick your one that you pick, then you negotiate here's like, this is all contracts, right?
Yeah.
So now once you pick them, you got to negotiate out their contract.
Okay.
Everything is negotiable. I mean, everything's negotiable. This isn't like you go and buy a car and you just sign on the bottom line. You can't like negotiate.
Change anything.
Everything's negotiable. So even negotiating with your investment banker, because there's all kinds of puts and pulls in there, right? Like, again, these are fair. They're not trying to pull anything over on you, but like you might not like the time frames they have.
Yeah.
You might say, if we sell to this buyer, you're not getting anything because I've been talking to that competitor for the last 3 years, there's all kinds of different things, even the percentage and how much you're going to pay. Like, hey, what if we sell 100% of it, I'll let you get this commission. If we sell 50% of it, I'll let you get this commission. Just different, like everything's negotiable, and you need to really go into it like eyes wide open. But the other thing I would say is, at the end of the day, though, this investment banker, really, once you negotiated that contract out, like you're going to be like hand in glove. Like you are going to be working so closely with them, and they are going to push this thing along. So you really need to be comfortable with them to be able to speak your mind. They need to be able to speak their mind to you. You really need to have great communication with them.
So you basically highlighted, one, why it's important to have that mentor to know what your options are when it comes to that. But also at the same time, the investment banker is here to help you. There's definitely options and changes you can make, but they're not the competitor. They're not who you're trying, you guys will be working hand in hand.
Absolutely. They're going to be, once you sign the document, they're on your team. Now, I do like having a mentor, because just like with a real estate agent's trying to sell your house. The investment banker is trying to sell your house.
Yeah.
It's good to have that, other voice
in the game.
Yeah. That's kind of like, hey, listen, I know what the investment banker told you. I'm not disagreeing with them. They seem like, but remember, their job is to sell your company.
Mm-hmm.
Are you ready to sell your company?
Yeah.
Right? Like their job is to push it along, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like time kills deals, and these people work.
Mm-hmm.
I would be up late at night. I'd work till like 1:30 at night, and I'd send an email, and I think, oh, they'll answer me at 7 a.m. and I'll get a response at 1:45.
Mm-hmm.
Like they work.
Yeah.
Like this is like when you see the movies of Wall Street.
Yeah.
That's who you're dealing with. These people are workers. There are no days off. Like
Mm-hmm.
they work all hours of the night, nonstop. They push, and they're paid well. They're compensated well, but they are professionals.
Mm-hmm. So let me ask you this. When we are talking about the team, obviously you want an attorney on your team. If you're selling to an investment banker, I am going to assume your business is big enough that you've already been working with an attorney. Is this a case where that attorney could still be on your team? Or are you saying, or do you think you need to get an attorney who specializes in this in a sale?
That's a really great question. So first off, I want to correct one thing. So again, remember the investment banker, and I'm glad you said this.
Okay.
Because I want to highlight this. Remember the investment banker, it's a weird name.
Uh-huh.
They don't invest, and they're not
Yes,
a bank.
that's right.
They are basically they're selling your company
Okay.
to people who invest and use banks.
Yes,
So
yes.
I have no idea why they're called investment bankers. So I just want to highlight that real quick. So your attorney, this is a good question. So I did not. I used my attorney that I've used from the very beginning, and he and I went up against, I think the team of attorneys that they had was 9. There was 9 attorneys that we were negotiating with, right? So my guy and me and 9. The reason it was my guy and me is because I didn't have a mentor to tell me I needed a bigger team.
Yeah.
If I had to tell you someone else, I'd say, no, get a bigger team. Like find a group and help talk to your investment banker, have them find attorneys that will help you. Also know that you're going to spend money. Like whether you close this deal or not, with that attorney, you're going to spend money, and it's not going to be cheap. Especially if you go outside your attorney that you're using right now. Now, I'm not saying that you have to use another team for everything, because like, do they need to read your, if you stay on your future employment contract? No, you can probably figure that out yourself, or have your existing attorney do that, right? But like, do you want them negotiate the terms and conditions that are, 175 pages long, font 6? Absolutely. Like you want pros that they do M&As. That's what they do. That's their day job.
Yeah.
So they know all the places to look, all the tools, the tricks. And again, I'm not saying people are trying to trick you, like, but they're professionals. They want it written their way. And trust me, you're going to want it written your way.
Yeah.
It's not a trick. It's not a bamboozle, but you have to know what you're negotiating. And I'm going to tell you, I personally read every single page of every single contract. By the time it was done, it was over 300. I want to say it was like 350 legal size pages, font, whatever, 8.
Yeah.
And I think I've shared this in many of my podcasts, but one was like super small font, 19 lines before there was a period. So it was a 19-line sentence. Like, it's tough, right? Like, you need, like, and don't be like, oh, well, I'll just use ChatGPT or whatever, right? Like, okay, I'm not saying, again, that parts of it, there's not ways to, like, save money. Be shrewd, because like I said, if you don't close this deal, you're going to still have a huge attorney bill.
Yeah.
But like, you need to go into this going, you're going to spend at least $50,000 on attorney fees, probably more by the time this thing's all said and done.
Okay.
And so really just knowing that that's going to, whether you close or not, you're going to have this expense.
Get that right in your head first.
Yeah.
So that way you're doing it the right way.
Exactly.
Who else would be on your team?
Yeah. So, in my case, again, I didn't have a mentor to tell me what I needed. So I never had a CFO. My bookkeeper and I did it. God bless her. She worked her tail off. I worked my tail off. The investment bankers helped me. They brought in, they actually helped us sort out our books. Like I said, these investment bankers are very bright, very hardworking, and there's really nothing they haven't seen, right? So like, they helped us sort out our books, they helped us put it together in a presentation, but it would have been great to have had a CFO. So if you're like, hey, I'm thinking about hiring a CFO and I might sell in like 6 years or 4 years, like, yeah, then you probably should bring in a CFO, because the sooner you can get and I'm not talking about a bookkeeper, like I'm talking about someone who is a bona fide real CFO that's probably walked down this walk before, maybe worked with private equity before, know how they like things presented, understand the way to present your books.
Yeah.
Because again, it's about as much as about your financials, it's how everything's presented. Where's the opportunity? How do you tell this story? We talk about that in the former episode. But having a great CFO makes things a lot easier. Can you do it without a great CFO? Sure. Do I recommend it? No. And then behind that, a good CPA. The reason I say that isn't necessarily because they're going to help with your books, because at the end of the day, for the most part, if you have like a CFO, and at the end of the day, the CPAs do your taxes kind of for you.
Yeah.
But like, you want to know how like this is going to impact you personally. So my CPAs did our company and they did me personally. So there was a very clear, like, okay, if we do this, this is the impact to you personally. If you structure the deal slightly different, it's going to be less tax, So just having a CPA that is privy the entire way, not in the 11th hour, but the entire way as to what's going on. And again, you're going to spend some money with them, not anything crazy in my opinion, like with an attorney, but I would definitely recommend a good CPA.
Okay. Anybody we missed on the team?
I think there's going to be people within your organization that you have to bring under the tent, that have to understand what's going on.
Okay.
Because all of a sudden these people are showing up out of the blue, and they're wearing suits, and everyone tries to act incognito, like, oh yeah, we're just here to see the building and meet with you, right? Like, they will do that. Like, if you ask them to wear, tennis shoes and shorts, they'll show up like that, right, to try to look incognito. But people aren't dumb, like, and also you're pulling reports, not just from your CFO, but you're pulling sales reports.
Yeah.
You're pulling inventory. Like, people will come, and when you close, like, they will go through and count your inventory. Like, they're going to make sure that your inventory in the back matches what's on your balance sheet. Like, so you have to bring certain people under the tent, limit them. Like, make sure that they're compensated accordingly. Like, you let them know what's going on and say, hey, I need you to keep this confidential. And by the way, if we close, there's going to be something in it for you, right? Like, make it so it's worth their while, but make them sign something confidential, like an NDA or something like that. Because you don't want these rumors running rampant in your company, but you will have to bring certain people under the tent. Now, who those people are, it varies from organization to organization. Less is more, right? Only bring them in if they need to know, in my opinion. And then, those people, even with that, like, you want to make sure that you set the right expectations that this may or may not happen. They're going to have questions, right? Like, they're going to want to know, like, does this mean I'm losing my job?
Yeah.
Right? Because we talked about this, like, many times private equity will buy you and they will want the company exactly as is, and they'll want to add on to it. But many times they'll buy you and they'll put you under another company and they'll wipe out as much of your staff as possible.
Yeah.
Right? So, like, really making sure that, the people that you bring under the tent kind of understand even what their relationship might look like post-sale, right? It's important that you're ready to have those conversations. Again, this is where a mentor comes in, right? Like, you talk to a mentor because they're the only person that probably really understands the anxiety and stress that this brings.
Do you think, going back to people you'd bring under the tent, would it be people who maybe aren't going to be directly involved in the sales, but have played a leadership role in the company and the direction, and just would help with messaging afterwards or help with the culture afterwards?
So I think that's a really great question, because we, for my company, when we sold it, they wanted to know who the key leaders were. They wanted to feel comfortable because, again, I was leaving.
Yeah.
right? So the new CEO, they want to know, hey, first off, are any of these people, could they be your predecessor or replacement, right?
Yeah.
Are any of these folks, the future CEO? And if they're not, do we feel comfortable? Like, do we feel comfortable having them work with the CFO? So those are folks I need to bring under the tent. And I knew that they all had roles, like regardless what happened afterwards. So it was an easier conversation. But let's say, let's go back to the inventory thing, right? Like they really, especially depending on what type of company you are, like they're going to want to make sure that that inventory on your balance sheet is actually sitting back there in the back in the warehouse, right?
Yeah.
So they're going to come out, and let's say your warehouse manager is the only person that can really answer these questions and show the people around and help them do, their quote unquote audit or whatever that they're doing. Well, you might need to bring that person under the fold, right? You might not just be comfortable telling them, oh, well, just a buddy of mine, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Right? Like, depending on what your comfort level is, you have to tell that person. And that if this deal closes, like the people are normally transparent. They're by you, right? Like they don't tell you everything, but they want to say, hey, they're going to ask you point blank, what if we could change all of inventory and run that out of Missouri instead of Arizona, right? Like, and that this person's going to lose their job, right? So like you have to be very thoughtful about it. And then this is one of the things that you want to do is also realize, like, how can I compensate people accordingly post-sale, right?
Yeah.
Do I want to give them some type of options, right? So that they're excited to stay around, excited for the transition. If they're going to go away and like the company's not going to pay severance, do I want to take some of my money and, give them money, as a thank you, thanks for the hard work. I'm sorry that this happened, but I'm giving you something. So this is where a mentor helps you think that kind of stuff through. And each situation's different. So I don't mean to say that a mentor has been there, done that in every scenario, but they at least can relate, and you have somebody to bounce ideas off of that, has experienced the same type of, anxiety and hard decisions that you've had.
Next question I have for you is just there's a lot of, platforms or online options for a business owner when it comes to selling, brokerage platforms, valuation tools, listing services. What's your take on those? Do you think they're good?
I absolutely would utilize what's ever at my fingertips, right? So to this day, I go on those, buy or biz buy or whatever.
Yeah, like biz buy sell.
Yeah, biz buy sell. I go on there, a few times a year, probably 3 or 4 times a year, and I'll just scroll through the companies, just to get ideas, just to see what companies are selling for, to see if there's any that maybe my companies are interested in buying. But like, I'm not a serious looker on those, but I do put value in there, right? And so like, depending on the size of company you're at, like that's a viable option. There's lots of valuation tools, especially if you're a software type company. We talked on a prior episode about how, some software companies are not even profitable. I had a company a few months back. They wanted me to buy it for $17 million, and they're losing about, I don't know, $60,000 a month right now. Right? So it's like, how do you value that, right?
Yeah.
Like, I mean, I'm at a point in my life and experience where I can, put pen to paper and get reasonably horseshoe close on what I think a valuation is reasonable. First off, I don't think that was the right valuation, but but sometimes there are valuations like that. Sometimes there's crazy valuations and the company's losing money. So what kind of tools, there are definitely tools online that help you kind of evaluate that, and use that. So I think anything at your fingertips, this is such a, I often describe things like using metaphors or analogies or whatever, but like it's the 3 blind people describing an elephant, as many perspectives as you can get, right? Because some person's going to be like, oh, it's a wall.
Yeah.
Other person's going to be, no, it's a tree trunk. The other person's like, no, it's a snake.
Yeah.
Put them all together. It's like, oh, actually it's an elephant, right?
Yeah.
Like, so I think it's the more tools and the more resources and the more people that you can get insight from, the easier you'll be able to kind of blindly work your way through this very challenging process. And so, I personally think that finding those tools, implementing them early in the process could be very beneficial.
Last question for you. Thinking back to your first sale, and assembling the team or starting that initial final process, what would you do differently?
Wow, that's a great question. I feel extremely blessed on that particular one because I didn't know what I was doing, and I had great buyers on the other side who were very patient and kind with me and were very honest people. In that world, it can be very cutthroat, you know. Oh, sorry, you didn't pay close enough attention. You just got screwed, you know. So I feel like the outcome for me was perfect. You know, but it was a 2-year process. I spent a ton of time in prayer, a ton of encouragement from my wife, but again, lonely. But I feel like I walked out of that as good as I could have done it. But it was only because my investment banker was very patient and very helpful and very full service, and my buyers were very transparent and very honest. I don't think you always get that. Okay. I'll tell you a story. This was really good, and I'm not saying that this is other people are going to get this type of buyer, but my buyers, we got to, I'm not going to say the 11th hour, but maybe 10:30. You know, it was late in the game. Yeah. And I called them up and said, I'm out. I just can't do this, right? And again, they had spent over 100,000 in attorneys. I had spent probably 30,000 in attorney fees at this point. And I was like, and they gave me a fair valuation. Everything was good. I just, I didn't have that mentor and my emotions and all these different things. I just kind of was like, I'm out. And they were very patient. They said, okay, we understand. We're going to give you one of our junior analysts, and we're going to send you over all of our documents, everything all the homework that we did on your company. And they'll walk you through all of it. And we want you to know why we offered the price we did. We want you to also know, like, hey, here's some pitfalls you're going to have ahead of you if you don't bring someone like us on. And they were just transparent. They gave me everything, and they let me poke around at all their due diligence and look at it. And their junior analyst kind of worked with me and walked me through everything. And after like 3 or 4 days, I was like, you know what? I have made the right decision. I wasn't questioning their valuation or anything like that. I was just thinking, again, like, should I hold on to it? Could I get more later, right? Yeah. Is this the right time? And they showed me all of this. And then I called them up and said, hey, let's sit back at the table because I think I do want to move forward. But again, that was wonderful buyers who were, and I'm friends with these guys to this day. Like, they're some of my closest friends. That particular buyer who led the deal on that one is today my mentor that I reach out for everything. When I'm stuck or I need a sounding board, I utilize him. So I feel extremely blessed that I got through that process with the people that I did. So I personally wouldn't have changed anything, but I was very blessed. And I don't think that's the norm. So I know that's probably where it didn't go where you thought that question was going to go. Yeah. But that was the truth. That's kind of how it went down for me.
Sounds good.
Yeah. Well, this is super fun. I think our next episode is the one that probably most people want to skip to. Yeah. Which is, how much money am I getting? Yes, right? Yes. So I'm going to try to break it down. I'm going to tell everyone right now, though, like, if you're listening to this and thinking about skipping ahead and skipping the other ones, like, I think you're really going to do yourself a disservice. It's super intriguing. Everyone wants to know how many zeros you can get and how much goes in the bank and how much you're taxed on and how much your fees is to the investment banker. Everyone wants to know all that. And it's important, right? But at the end of the day, what's more important is your legacy, your baby, right? And how you enter that next phase of your life. I did a podcast one time about how you exit a door is how you enter the next room. Yeah. So how you're exiting one room is how you're entering another room. And so, sure, the dollars and cents are important and you want to know all of that, but doing this process right is how you're going to get the most dollars and cents, frankly. But doing this process right is right, regardless of the dollars and cents. It will make you a better business person. It will make your company better. It will make your people better. And ultimately, it'll get you that valuation. So even though I know everyone wants to skip ahead, and it's coming, next episode, don't disregard these last three.
Thank you.
Awesome. Great. Thanks, everybody. We'll see you in a week.